Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. So glad you're here and you're listening to the podcast. I say it all the time. I will continue to say it all the time because without listeners, we don't have a podcast. And because you've been such faithful listeners, we've been ranked in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, according to listennotes.com. So thank you for that. All right. So let's jump into today's episode. Now, today I'm talking to Andrea Mein DeWitt. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Andrea. She's the author of the book, Name, Claim, and Reframe, Path to a Well-Lived Life, which was featured on NBC's Today Show as the best motivational read for the year 2023. That's amazing. And the book is a call to disarm metaphorical armor that hides our truth. And she recently released the workbook, Name, Claim, and Reframe, to accompany her book to teach you the system and how to integrate it into your life. She's also a leadership coach who teaches leaders how to change how they see themselves, how they navigate the changes they want to make in their lives. Welcome, Andrea Mein DeWitt.
Well, thank you, Robin. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. All right. So now you just heard me kind of go through your official bio introduction, but why don't you tell us in your own words about first who you are and then about the work you do?
Well, we were talking before we went on about leadership purpose and about, sometimes people feeling lost and thinking, I've been doing this and I'm lost and I want to understand where I want to go or why I'm having a dissonant experience. And I am really proof that you're not too old and it's never too late to pivot, to really find your truth and live your best life. After a 30-year career in academia, I pivoted in my early 50s to go back to school, become a life and leadership coach, which is what I'm doing now. And what I do, Robin, is I help people to really see their potential, to really see the magnificence inside them, so they can really get closer to their core beliefs and living their truth and living, doing the things they really want to do and being more authentically attuned, aligned. And
I love that.
that's really why we're here. We decided we thought, oh gosh, I'm so glad we met because we had so much to talk about.
I love that. I love your story about pivoting. Uh, really want to hear more about what was the catalyst for that? Because you just don't decide to make a change after 30 years of doing anything. It seems to me there might have been something that prompted that. Was there something in your life or in your work that led you to make the decision to make that shift?
Such a great question, Robin, because I think we all have things that happen to us. I mean, we may have a diagnosis, a health diagnosis. We might be going through a divorce. We might have a financial downfall. We might lose our job. And suddenly, our identity of what we thought, the truth of what we thought our life was, is no more. And so we are left. I use the metaphor of getting hit by a rogue wave and just tumbling, with sand in your bikini bottoms. You're disoriented. You don't know what's going on. And that happened to me in my early 50s, with both feeling dissonance in my career as an academic, feeling like I've done all this identity I have isn't fitting where I really want to go. And also having a little financial setback that really forced me to get honest with myself. And so when I went back to school to get my coaching certification, I was so worried. And so many of the women that come to my practice are worried. I'm not smart enough. People aren't going to take me seriously. Can I pivot and make money? Are people, can I do this? And I walked into that room when I started the training, and I thought, oh gosh, I'm an imposter. And I walked in and suddenly I realized, I heard angels singing and I thought, oh my goodness, the universe has sent me exactly where I needed to go. And I just I just knew that I'd made the right decision and I trusted my intuition. I always say to my clients, if your gut is telling you it's right, just lean into that because your gut doesn't lie.
Yeah.
What I realized when I was going through this, and this is the title of my book, I named my emotional trigger. I knew that I didn't want to react to my life. I wanted to respond to it. And then I claimed an action, which was going back to school, that matched up with my core beliefs. And I didn't really know what my core beliefs were. I thought I did, but then I got really clear on that. And then with that, I reframed my mindset. And when we reframe our mindset, we shift our perspective and our life, our everything expands and we're able to see another way through. And I
Yeah.
saw another way through. And
Yeah.
so this name, claim, and reframe, which I've trademarked, became this three-part system that you can use to navigate a major disaster, like losing your job or a divorce or whatever it is. Or my goodness, when you're having facing adversity with Comcast or someone cutting you off in traffic. I mean, you can name the emotional trigger and say, I'm reacting. I'm going to choose to respond. You can claim an action instead of, what action can I claim that can match with my core beliefs? And then once you've named and claimed, you can reframe and you can see a different way through. And so my whole life has changed in that I name, claim, and reframe. And I have my clients and people that are reading my book and people that come to my workshops doing the same. And it's really a way to, I think, be more strategic, resourceful, and graceful in your leadership. And my goodness, if we all took a beat to think, okay, I would rather be the leader that responded to this challenge. And just you got to give yourself time to respond instead of react. We would have a lot more harmony
Yeah. Yeah. And
in the world.
I hear your passion when you're talking about it. And as you are going through and where you are now. Uh, so I'm going to go back to where you were then later. But where you are now, I'm listening to you and feeling your passion. Would you say now you have a sense of purpose in your work?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think and you who mentors and does the things that you do, Robin, um, my purpose really is really helping others. I'm a teacher at heart, and the root word of education is educe, which means to pull out, what you see in other people, because we often don't see our gifts in ourselves. And my purpose really is to help other people see their gifts. And oh my goodness, it gives me such a charge to do that. But that's my gift to the world is that I'm able to see other people, to witness someone seeing their own magnificence, to see their own magnificence, and then give themselves permission to step into that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
We talked about this before we hit record. But we're like kindred spirits because that is very close to my mission statement, what you just said. And I feel it's one of my main gifts is helping people see their gifts. But my mission is, and I'm sharing this so you could see that we have this in common and so other people could also hear because I don't talk about it much here. But my mission is to help particularly high achieving women to see, know, and act on the best of who they are so they have more meaning and purpose in their life and work. And so you and I have that. And my main gifts, one of my superpowers or my zone of genius, is helping other people see their gifts. I could see it immediately, but I use a system because it helps people believe that it comes from something other than me just being nice to them.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. Oftentimes, when someone comes into my coaching practice, or someone comes to one of my workshops or my salons, or they read my book, they'll come and they'll say, "Oh my goodness, I never saw that." And I'll say, "But you know, I mean, once you see it." Once you see the magnificence or that gift within yourself, you can't unsee it. And I think we're taught, especially as women, to
Mhm.
not own our light. And so if we can help others to learn tools to own their light and then share it with the world. Wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty potently powerful.
Yes. All right. So now let's go back. So we know you have this sense of purpose in your work and you're doing this. I just want to go back just a moment to the point where you were making the pivot, because
Mhm.
I think there's somebody who's on the edge of that. You told us about, okay, the first thing to do is to name it, and then we want to claim and name, claim, reframe. But right before then, where maybe for you or not, I'm guessing for others, it might be a case where there's a lot of uncertainty. Like, I don't know if I should do this or what it is exactly that I want to do. I've established myself. I have a level of success in this one thing, or like in your case, it was a part of your identity. So let's talk about that. Just the step before the moving forward through the name, claim, reframe. How did you navigate that piece?
Well, I mean, I think what you said, and I use that, false identities that we stand in, that we've held. I mean, when you go to school for a long time and you earn, degrees and certifications, or you've been in a job for a long time, you have a certain identity. This is what I do. This is what people expect of me. And so there's a part of you that, it's your people pleasing. You know, who am I going to let down if but yet in my gut, I'm feeling dissonance. I mean, when we feel dissonance, we feel, a pull from the gut. That is your wiser. I always say the wise woman that lives just under my skin, she's sending me a message. There's something going on here. And oftentimes, I mean, if it doesn't feel uncomfortable, if then it's not significant. Listen to it, because
Mm.
the wise woman that lives just under your skin is speaking to you. And she doesn't yell like your inner critic does. She whispers, but she knows. She knows. And for me, Robin, the wise woman that lived under my skin said, Andrea, you are an incredible mentor. That's your superpower, Levy. Go after it. And so I trusted her. And I said that moment when I walked into the room and I thought, these are my people. Where have they been? Why did I not allow myself to do this sooner?
How did you
Uh,
know that was your route, though? I mean, how did you even know to go there to start that?
well, I
To
had
think
been doing
about it.
that at the college. I had been doing a lot of advising, and I've been teaching at the college and advising and mentoring students. And I love that actually more than teaching the content.
Did somebody
That's
help
the
you
truth.
realize? Did somebody help
Mhm.
you realize, hey, what if I could do this piece somewhere else? Or did it just come?
Well, I was hung up again. You will understand this, Robin. I was hung up again with all my, advanced degrees, and the fact that had worked so hard to get to the teaching at the college level. I had, started in elementary school, and then I was a reading specialist and moved into, I kind of worked my way. I mean, 30 years I'd had a full career, but I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I need to break out of this track I'm on. And I think for a lot of women, the women that come into my practice, they're on a track. But I earned my law degree, but I really, really want to be an RN. I mean, I had a client who had a law degree. She had gone to school, and she goes, but I really, really want to be an RN. And through our time together, she went back to school and she became an RN. Wow.
Good for
And that
her.
takes courage. I mean, to me, um, and she's living her best life.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think that if when we can live our truth, we're happier people, we're happier, we're better partners, we're better mothers, we're better friends, we're better at what we do because we're living in our truth. We're in integrity.
Yes. Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly. And I'm guessing the listeners, we have them on board. All right. So let me tell you who I think the listener is of the podcast. And this was my
Okay.
intent of the podcast. When I started the podcast, well, my first thought was, what would I do? What can I do to put my message out into the world? And I remembered when I was in high school, I had a fantasy to be on the radio. that I didn't tell anybody about because I didn't even think it was a thing. And back then there were no podcasts. It was just a radio. And I was like, oh, that would be wonderful to be on the radio. But I didn't know, I didn't even think more about how I could even achieve that goal. It was just a fantasy. So fast forward, in the past several years when podcasts became emerging as a popular format, I thought, oh, this is a way for me to get my message out into the world. But really, who would it be for and what is the intention? And I said, you know, it's for high achieving women uh, who, this is my definition of a high achieving woman because everybody probably has their own. She's a woman who is responsible, goal oriented, ambitious in a positive way. She's good at a couple things. She may even have written a book. And because she's good at a couple things and she's all those things I just mentioned, people in her professional life come to her and just ask her questions, about anything. They're looking for advice. It could be related to what she does or not. And in her personal life, it could be her family, friends, community, neighbors, wherever she is, what organizations, people tend to come to her there and just, want to hear from her advice. And so she's always giving this support. And it doesn't cross those other people's mind that she might need support because she's the one that they come to all the time. And I see you nodding as in recognition. So I thought, well, who supports them while they're supporting everybody else? So I thought, okay, that's what the podcast will do. And then take that same person who is at a place in their life where you were not too long ago and saying, I need to make a change. I need to do something that's true, more true to me and who I am today, and that has meaning and purpose. So those are the people who are listening in to us right now. And so with her in mind, what's something you can share from your own talked about your framework, your system, or from your life that can speak specifically to that woman who's at the early stages. She doesn't quite know, not maybe at the stage of the lawyer who knew for sure she wanted to go to nursing. So what can you say? Some wisdom you can share in support of that woman.
I use the Zen term leap and the net will appear. Because if you leap, if you take one leap, and that maybe that leap is to, you know, call someone that you know that's doing what you want to do, or go to a talk, or you know, buy a book. In my case, I bought a book. That I bought a book, and that's how I found out what I wanted to do. Um, and because it signals to the universe you're serious. It also, if you leap with the intent to learn, you can't lose. You can't lose. I mean, if you leap, I mean, the net really will appear because you're going to learn something. You're going to meet somebody, serendipity is going to take over. You know, once you start going in the direction that your gut tells you, we talked about that gut, the wise woman that lives under your skin. I mean, just leap and the net will appear. You'll meet somebody, there'll be a coincidence. I mean, it happens every time. And I mean, I do think I mean, life coaches there's a little bit of magic, I think, when we trust our intuition. And I guarantee you, just trust that the net will appear. And if you leap with the intent to learn, you will never lose because you'll learn something
Yes, yes,
in service of your dream.
yes. I love that. And the curiosity in me wants to know. So what was the book that got your attention that helped you?
Well, oh, Robin, I mean, there really is magic. I hired a coach to help me who wasn't really a certified coach. And she said, oh, you don't need to be certified. Of course, I've got degrees and things. I'm thinking, yes, I do. She said, buy this book, Coactive Coaching. I bought the book on Amazon. It came the next day. I read it in a day. And Coactive Coaching is written by the Coactive Training Institute. I went, oh my goodness, this is exactly what I need to do. A week later, I called headquarters and said, sign me up. And that was, and the rest is history. That was, 8 years ago. And here I am.
Very inspirational. It's very inspirational. I mean, for me, and I'm sure for others who are listening. I mean, I feel like, Andrew, we can talk all day.
We could, but we want to make sure that we leave your listeners with gems that they can use in their
Exactly.
lives to live their
Exactly.
dreams.
So as we come to the end of our time here for this conversation, what's something that I maybe didn't get a chance to ask you about, or a thought that comes to your mind, or like to your point that you just made, something you want to share with people before we tell them where they can get in touch with you? We'll get to that.
Well,
Something that
I
they
want
can,
to say that not everybody maybe reads self-help books. I mean, maybe it's intimidating. And my follow-up workbook was written for readers to see themselves in name, claim, and reframe. And I really wrote it with help from clients after having gone through my system. And I would say that the workbook is an opportunity for you to take your power back strategically, resourcefully, and gracefully, one step at a time. And my hope is that if you open the workbook, and you don't have to do it in order, you can find little pieces of it that will give you information about how you can live closer to your truth with more purpose and meaning and authenticity. And so that was really my reason for doing the workbook. It's for the reader.
yeah, it sounds wonderful. Where can people get it and where can they be in touch with you?
Well, the book it is available anywhere books are sold. Amazon has a name, claim, and reframe, and you can do a search of Andrea Mein DeWitt and you can find it. I am at Andrea DeWitt Advisors.com. And if you do a search, I come up because there's not too many Andrea Mein DeWitts out
I
there,
like it.
as we
It's a,
discussed earlier with our
yeah, I
name.
like it. It's a strong name. It's a strong name. Andrea, thank you for sharing your time with me and in the midst of all this heat, and you didn't melt and you stayed here, made it through. So thank you for sharing your wisdom. I'm sure you're an inspiration to all who's listening.
And you too, Robin. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, everyone, if you want to follow me, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your response to this episode. You can contact me on social media. Pick your favorite site, but I do spend most of my time on LinkedIn, I have to say. LinkedIn, but you can find me at all the social media at Robin L. Owens, PhD, at Robin L. Owens, PhD. And also, I encourage you to visit our podcast website, leadershippurposepodcast.com, leadershippurposepodcast.com. And until next time, this is Dr. Robin.